Hey, Nate.
If you were told you were going to die of an incurable disease, what would you do? Ari Meisel fought it and beat it, and in the process discovered something, and that something is his topic for us today. How to make everything in life easier, less doing and more living. He wrote a fantastic small book, Less Doing, More Living, Make Everything in Life Easier. This book is invaluable. It is awesome, and he has become my favorite productivity expert because he has been personally helping me with stuff. And the guy, I think, is a genius. And so please welcome author, efficiency consultant, and achievement architect, Ari Meisel. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. How many people have a podcast? How many people have been on a podcast? Okay, so clearly this is the wrong content for you guys, but I prepared this talk anyway, so I'm going to dance with the one I brought. Okay, so 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is a chronic inflammatory condition that affects the digestive tract. It's considered to be incurable, and it's very painful and not really well understood. After being on a lot of medicine and getting sicker and weaker and pretty miserable in general, I hit a really bad low point in the hospital where I thought I was going to die. I didn't die, and I came out of that and went on this sort of long journey of self-tracking and self-experimentation. And I got off my meds after about 4 months, and 2 months later competed in my first triathlon. Now, according to Joel, I'm supposed to point out that this is a birthmark and not a result of self-experimentation. So, along the way, as I was actually setting my sights on Ironman France, I realized that I'd figured out the nutrition, I'd figured out the supplements, I'd figured out the fitness aspects of my life, which, quite honestly, and there's people in this room that can corroborate this, it's not that hard to figure that part out. And I've replicated my results in a lot of other people. The hard part is stress. Stress is an inflammatory agent. There's no two ways about it. And it's the hard part to deal with. So my response to the stress aspect of my life was to create a system of productivity, which I would call less doing, as in less doing, more living. The goal of which is to teach people how to optimize, automate, and outsource everything in their lives, including their health, in order to be more effective. Now, anybody in this room could pay to outsource something, but the truth is that if you outsource an inefficient task, it does not become more efficient. Quite the opposite. So this optimize, automate, outsource process is actually very important, and you have to start with the optimization, which gets us out of that autopilot mode that we've heard out of and actually gets you to look at the processes you're going through on a regular basis so you can see what you're doing and how you can make them better. And then nowadays, you can actually automate the majority of the things that you have to do in a regular day. So if there's anything left over, that's when we look at outsourcing. So I needed to give you that context so you realize that this is about podcasting, but it's not really about podcasting. It's about kind of this methodology that I apply to everything. So can we put the graphic up? Okay, so this is very geeky, and I'm going to talk about this kind of fast. This sort of should give you a good overview of what I'm about to say, and just keep in mind that this is very easy and doable stuff, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm obviously very passionate about this, but this is something that applies to everything that I do. So when I started doing a podcast, which, by the way, I love podcasting. It's the reason I'm here. Somebody heard my podcast, recommended my book and my book to Vern Harnish, spoke at Vern's event. Vern sent my book to Joe. And then Joe called me one weekend and was like, hey, I love your book, and look, I wrote all this stuff in it. And I didn't even know who Joe was, I'm sorry to say. I'm just not in this world. I haven't been. But now I'm so grateful to be here. So thank you, Joe. So when I started podcasting, it was a process that took me roughly 15 hours. And I wasn't very good at it because I don't know how to do sound engineering. Transcription is fine, I can do that. Audio editing and all that stuff. I wasn't very good at it, and I was doing it at 15 hours. The result of which is that I was putting out a podcast pretty much every 6 weeks, and anybody who's done a podcast knows that that doesn't really help build a following. So now, it takes about an hour of my time, and it's a fun hour. Costs me about $100 and makes it so that I can put out an episode every week, sometimes twice a week, if I'm feeling very spry. So basically the way it works now is I do the interview, which is about a half an hour, and I save that to Dropbox. I'll try to explain what some of the services are. I'm assuming most people know what Dropbox is. But I save it to Dropbox, and I rename it with the person's name and the word interview in it. This is where it's going to get a little geeky. There's an app called Sort My Box that automatically will see that and put it into another folder. Now, once it goes into that folder, another service takes over called Zapier. And if you don't know Zapier, you need to know Zapier because it is one of the most amazing productivity tools in existence today. Very similar to a website called IFTTT, which some of you may have heard of. Basically, all it does is it creates automations between various web services. If this happens here, do this here. It's the kind of stuff that takes you 30 to 60 seconds to do, but you're doing it dozens and sometimes hundreds of times a day. If somebody buys something from you on PayPal, automatically add that person as a new client to Salesforce. If somebody mentions you on Twitter, add that tweet to a line in a Google Docs spreadsheet. Like, all of these things can just be completely automated. So Zapier sees that new file, and it does a few things, one of which is that it creates a note in Evernote, which is then to be the show notes for that episode. So it automatically populates that and puts it in Evernote. Now, I then record a co-host section with my co-host, who is my brother-in-law and a film composer. And that section could be recorded a week or two or even 3 weeks after I actually do the interview. So he and I refer to that Evernote note. We talk about it. We record our bit. He puts the files together, and he puts it in Dropbox. Zapier comes back in now. So now we've got the finished file. So Zapier then takes the file and sends it to Fancy Hands. And Fancy Hands is a virtual assistant service that starts at $25 a month. That is an on-demand service. You have access to over 3,000 assistants that can do things 24 hours a day for you very, very quickly and easily. And it tells it tells Fancy Hands to take that file and go to Fiverr.com. And Fiverr is a website where people will do things for $5. Some of the stuff is very bizarre. I've had a guy in my seminars before who will call anybody you want as Christopher Walken for $5. But it also gets very useful. So there are people who will transcribe 30 minutes of audio for $5, and anybody who's transcribed stuff before knows that that's very cheap. So it tells Fancy Hands, take this file, go to Fiverr, order this transcription gig, and have the person transcribe it, including giving them instructions that when they're done, put the file through this Wufoo form that I've created. And Wufoo is just an online form. So the person transcribes it, and when they're done, they go to the Wufoo form, put in the name of the person, the file, it renames the file, puts it back into Dropbox again. Zapier sees that, and it now has the transcription, which it will, I'm sorry, not Zapier, WapWolf, which is similar to Zapier. It also automates Dropbox. WapWolf sees that transcription and will automatically upload it to SlideShare. SlideShare is just a website for hosting documents, presentations, whatnot. While all this is happening, the virtual assistant is also taking the file and going to Auphonic, which is a free website that does post-production on podcast files, and it just makes them sound really awesome. It's not what you're going to get from a $500 an hour audio engineer, but it's pretty damn good. So all of that stuff happens, and once that document hits SlideShare, that triggers another event, which is to have the Fancy Hands assistant, a different one, of course, because it's always a different assistant, come back in. They take the file from SoundCloud, because it's been uploaded there through Auphonic. They take the transcription from SlideShare, and they take the show notes from Evernote, and they create the blog post. And the blog post, of course, is automatically shared on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that stuff. And finally, based on the RSS feed, which is just your feed of your blog, Zapier sees that again, and it creates 2 emails. One is an email in my draft inbox, which is thanking the guest for being on the show. It has a link to the show. It has a copy of my book as a PDF attachment as a thank you. And I send that off. It includes a followup.cc. And thank you, Tim, for saving me time on explaining what followup.cc is. It's very similar to Boomerang. It just creates an automatic follow-up later on. I like followup.cc only because it's platform independent. You can do it from any device, any email service. So I do a 3-month follow-up because maybe in 3 months I want to see what that person's up to now. Maybe I want to have them back on. I don't have to think about that. That'll just come back to me in 3 months. And finally, using Square, the one that you can take credit cards from, but now you can actually send payment just by sending an email with Square. It pays my brother-in-law for doing the work on the podcast. So basically, I do a half an hour of talking to someone awesome, saving that. I do a half an hour of talking to my brother-in-law, which is fun. And then a couple days later, I see a blog post on my blog, and I don't have to worry about it, and it's all done. So again, I realize that's a little geeky. There's a lot of stuff there. Maybe that's a little bit too specific, although there are a lot of you that have podcasts. But the point is that this methodology can be applied to just about anything that you do in your life, including your health. Optimize, automate, and outsource. I believe that 95% of the stuff that we do on a daily basis can be done by other people or other things. And it's that 5% that only you can do and do better than anybody else that you should be able to focus on. And Dan Sullivan really articulated this well yesterday. when he said that every singer has a song to sing. And basically, my life's passion now is to make sure that none of the Frank Sinatras out there ever have to move their own pianos. So thank you. And I'm sorry about my voice.
No, and you know what's great? He actually finished in 9 minutes. So
I told you I would.
Seriously, he's awesome. Okay, and the book Less Doing, truly, read the book Less Doing, and I know that Ari has put together some educational things, programs, and he's working on stuff like that, and I'm going to get involved with him on a marketing level because some of the stuff that he has personally taught me, I have hired a lot of different productivity people. David Allen's a good friend of mine. I mean, I've interviewed all kinds of organization people, and Ari has been the most personally helpful to me when it comes to kind of crazed entrepreneurial behavior and how to add it. And so this graphic overview that you have is just one element of a task that many people could, if you think about a $250,000 idea, how much is your time worth and how much would you need to spend trying to figure it out? But this is one of many things that you could learn from Ari. So give it up. I think he was badass. And he's... There you go.
Joe, it just gives me just butterflies every time.
As it should. As it should.
Hey, Dean.
Hey, what's up?
Thanks for making the time for us.
Awesome. Hey, so just Joe and Ari, let me do the quick formalities here to introduce the audience. I don't think you guys need much of an introduction, but my name's Sam Cook, and I'm the founder of Business Research Group, just organizing this live event. And I've had the privilege over the last 5 months of first of all, working with Ari as a coaching client of his and then helping him organize his mastermind and his high-end coaching group. So I just wanted to bring on two rock stars of the marketing world that I think any business leader, if they haven't heard of Joe Polish and Dean Jackson, need to hear from them now about habits of highly successful entrepreneurs. And that's the title for tonight's show. And I don't know of anyone who knows more successful people than Joe Polish from just listening to his I Love Marketing podcast and how he networks with everyone. And then, of course, Dean Jackson, who's a friend and very close friend and associate of all of Joe's friends, but also my mentor, James Shramko, who runs my mastermind group that I've learned marketing from. So without further ado, I'd just like to introduce all these people and just kick off a great discussion about marketing. So, Joe, hey, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How you doing? Thank you so much for the introduction. I really appreciate it. I'm doing great. And as far as productivity goes, I just have to make it real clear up front here that I would say Ari and Dean are probably more qualified to talk about being productive than me. But I have a few tips and techniques that I use, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, thanks a lot, Joe. And I think one of the reasons that you're on here is you are the case study for the frenetic entrepreneur that so many people here are we've all been there. You're either really left-brained and really organized, or you're not.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of binary in the world of business, and I guess you and Dean are a great juxtaposition of the two different extremes of that. But Dean, I just wanted to give you a quick chance to say hello and to the audience, and what you hope to share tonight. So.
Yeah, hey, I'm happy to be here. I mean, it's always been a big love of mine, productivity and life hacks, and meeting Ari just recently has been kind of like meeting somebody who's as geeky about the kind of stuff as I am. So I have to sit and try and explain it all to Joe, and he's. It's nice to have somebody who's like equally into it. So it's cool. I'm not the only crazy one. Don't just think I'm lazy.
Are you happy to have found someone who could finally get through to Joe? Because I guess you never did, right?
That's right. Exactly. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Dean's productive simply because he's just really lazy. So he has to figure out how to be as I mean, and I'm saying that kind of jokingly, but the truth is he wants to live a friction-free life, which requires him to have a whole different way of thinking about stuff. But you're right, Sam. I'm a type of guy that, left to my own devices, I'm my own worst enemy, and it's really great to bring this in because I've learned how to really build a successful business and do a lot of stuff which many of the people watching are doing or want to do. And Ari just is brilliant at learning stuff. But I think every one of us here had to figure out, yourself included, we're converts of our own system. I mean, we had to figure out how to do stuff along the way. So I sort of think of this as just talking about each other's capabilities and sharing those capabilities with everyone that's participating here. So by the time we're done, they actually feel like they got a lot of value and they're going to be more capable. And with more capability, you're going to have a better life, make more money, maybe spend more time with your family, whatever someone's objective is for being more productive.
Yeah, and I actually just want to make a point about that too, Joe, and I'm glad you said that. There's a couple, I feel like there's two different kinds of people that I tend to work with, and there's the people that are so overwhelmed that they're really their own worst enemy and they never get stuff done. And then there's the people like you who have so much going on and they just keep grinding it out and they get lots of really, really good stuff done, but they can do more, essentially. So it's it's the kind of thing where you're either dealing with somebody who's totally halted, or you're dealing with somebody who's really doing amazing by most people's standards, but there's a better way.
Yeah. Well, and Ari, I think there's actually a third type of person you work with, which is Dean Jackson, and so I like to joke that the two types of people in our mastermind group are the people who geek out over this stuff and talk about the latest recipe on IFTTT, and then you have people like me who were hopeless 3 months ago before I met you and started working with you, and like Joe Polish. So a lot of people need it, but we've gotten a lot of stuff done in our lives. I've gotten a lot of stuff done. I don't know how, but it's been very inefficient. I've worked really hard and haven't figured out how to be intelligent, lazy, Perry Marshall likes to talk about, and Dean has obviously mastered. So I think there's really a couple types, and you work with both.
Yeah, let me say something too, just so everyone out there, however they feel, because the world's greatest achievers tend to live with the highest levels of dissatisfaction. And I had dinner last night with Darren Hardy, who's a friend of mine, and Dean Graziosi. Dean is a real estate guru, probably the top in the world, and Darren Hardy is the publisher of Success Magazine. So Darren was in town speaking at Berkshire Hathaway this morning, and we had dinner last night. And we're talking about success. And he was just talking about, how to be more productive and everything, because he has a new book coming out that is about entrepreneurship, and one of the chapters, of course, is productivity. And it was funny sitting there listening to him, just both of them, talk about the high levels of frustration about, entrepreneurs and the highly productive people. And I think the key here, in Ari, I really like Ari's approach, because Ari, I think, had to figure things out due to disease, having 3 children, being put in a situation where pressure actually forced you to figure things out. And so everyone that's watching has the opportunity to learn how to not wait till disaster hits you till you have to figure out how to sink or swim, sort of thing. Now, some people, they won't change if they're not put into a very negative situation. But just talking with Darren, I said, yeah, the key though is not only to be a successful entrepreneur, but along the way not hate your life. And a lot of people, they approach it with such a level of intensity, success, that is it really success? Is success a lot of money? Or is, like Dean Jackson has this thing called, I know I'm being successful when you have certain aspects that exist in your life. And everybody has a different definition and a different criteria and a different standard of what makes life successful for you. So as we get into this, I would love to, I always love questions, and I would like to present to everyone watching us, at the end of the time we're going to have together, say in the next hour, what needs to happen in order for you to feel like you won, like you have learned something, you have gained a perspective. What does that need to be? And if you can at least identify one or two things that will be helpful, like say, no, I wish I knew this, or I wish I'd learned that, and you just think about that right now, then through the conversation that we're going to have and what we're going to talk about, guess what? You'll probably actually get that. Because when it comes to any sort of learning, half of it is what the speaker, the presenter, the person, the author, the guru, whatever the heck you want to call it, presents. The other part is how you're listening. And if you're, you have a background in martial arts, and you have to approach everything with a beginner's mind. And so if you really approach it saying, okay, there's a lot of things that I know, and that's what's gotten you to where you're at, and there's a lot of things that I don't know. And here's what I'd love to find out, and that's how things tend to come into your world is if your mindset is right. And the fact that anyone is watching this or listening to this, they're genuinely interested in productivity. So I'd love to ask you, Ari, just to kind of start it off. I mean, it sounds like a maybe stupid basic question, but what is productivity? What does that even mean?
Sure. I think that's a great question. And well, I'll tell you what my definition of success is, and they're related. To me, success personally is if I am better today in any way than I was yesterday. Whether I'm a better writer, a better husband, a better father, a better marketer, something I've been learning a lot about recently, a better business person, anything, a better athlete. I mean, basically, if I've bettered myself in some way, then I feel like I am being successful. And to achieve that requires productivity. You have to be productive. You have to be moving forward. Basically, to me, productivity and progress are basically the same thing, because if you could be going in a negative direction, but you should be learning something from that regardless. So as long as you're moving, as long as you're making decisions, as long as you're not stagnating, I feel like that is some element of productivity. And then it's really the velocity of that is what kind of determines how productive you are, the rate at which you change, basically.
Yep. Awesome. And what about you, Dean, you big handsome fella?
Big handsome fella? I love that when Ari just said that his you can tell when he's being successful, and you mentioned it, that my big driving guideposts have been my definitions of success for me, and I've defined them in a way that answers the question. I know I'm being successful when, and that's bringing success into something that you can experience in the present tense. And we've all had to sort of create our own methods of productivity and for our own reasons. I mean, Joe's just got so much overwhelming stuff going on that in order to get any of it done, it's like the 20% of what he does get done is because his 80% is so huge. There's so much stuff going on. And so I look at I had to develop my productivity things because for years, I've been ADD before even really knowing what that meant or what that was, or having a diagnosis. Just knowing myself that I've been, I find it difficult to focus. So I've done it as a defense mechanism to get the most productivity that I can out of the limited time that I'm able to focus on something, so making things as easy as possible or as simple as possible or as few steps as possible or take the least amount of time possible. I'm always looking for the most efficient way to turn a little bit of effort into a lot of results. So that's been a lot of the strategies that I have are around that.
And I also want to ask you about that too, Dean, because you posted a picture on one of my groups the other day of your drawer of water bottles.
So I got some right here, actually. That's funny.
Yeah, well, so you obviously, one of the things that people I find have trouble differentiating or trouble grasping is that these methods apply to business and personal life.
I don't make a difference. There's no difference where time is time. For an entrepreneur
right.
or somebody who's in the results economy where your time and your productivity are going to lead to your business success, I don't make any distinction in that. A lot of times it's amazing to me that people can buy into this idea of delegating or having support for their business things, but then are coming home and doing $10 an hour work for 20 hours a week just to support their life, you know? And so I look for all of the things. I want to maximize all of the time. And the time that I'm not working or free time, I want that to be as free as possible. And the time that I'm focusing, I want that to be as profitable and productive as it can be. So I look at, you know, all of it as my life, you know, and my pursuit of a perfect life. And one of those things is having everything around me in a supportive environment. So I have a personal assistant that I call my Easy Button. And, you know, basically she does everything that goes into supporting my life in terms of doing grocery shopping and cleaning and tidying the house, and she cooks and, you know, gets gas in the cars and does everything that goes into supporting my life that somebody else could possibly do. And so that leaves me to just do the things that I really want to do and the things that are, when I'm working, the most productive things, you know. So there's so many of those little life hacks. What you were talking about was my, you know, I'm constantly looking for and keeping track of what I call friction in my life. Anything that is something that's not perfect. And so the other, you know, maybe 18 months ago, I found that for the third time, I had gotten in bed, and you know when you get in bed and you're like under the covers and you're ready to, you know, to go to bed, and I was going to take some melatonin, and I realized I didn't have any water. And so I had to, for the third time, get out of bed, go into the kitchen, get some water. And I just realized anytime something like that happens, you know, more than once, 2 or 3 times, I start to think, well, how can I make that never happen again? And so I had Courtney get these little water bottles that you get in the hotels, like the little single-serving things, and I have a drawer in my bedside table. The bottom drawer is now a bottomless water bottle drawer. There's constantly these little water bottles that are constantly replenished. It's like a system that you set up that's constantly renewing. So now I will never run into the problem of not having water by my bedside. And that may sound so super duper trivial, but when you collectively take all of these things, you know, that's just one of the examples of the kind of things that she's able to do and setting up a system for.
Yeah, so you said a couple of things there that I think are really great, and I just want to pick out 2 of them. One of which is that people are always asking me like what I look at to outsource or to automate, and you basically said what I say, which is if I do it more than twice, it takes me more than 5 minutes, or I don't like doing it, that's something that I look at how I can get rid of or do better. And then the other thing is that it's not trivial, because doing something like that, first of all, it does save you time, it saves you some sort of frustration, but it gets you in that problem-solving mindset.
Right.
You're always looking that there might be a better way.
I'm always looking for the system solution for something. You're right. It is always looking for a system, and it is kind of a skill set, you know, that you do. That's a muscle that you exercise and you do develop, and you start to think, well, if somebody was going to do it, could somebody else do it? You know, what's the process for this?
Let me say something too, also, because I have a sneaky feeling that a lot of people that are watching this are entrepreneurs and have companies and businesses, and like you mentioned, Dean, live in the results economy, not the time and effort economy. So their income is contingent upon their ability to go out and produce results, which is why productivity and systems that make you more effective are so critical. And that has a lot to do with many things. One is focusing on the right things versus doing things right, because you can do the wrong things really well, but they're the wrong things.
Right.
And Peter Drucker says there's nothing more useless than doing really well that which need not be done at all. And so part of it is determining, what not to do whatsoever. Now, I'm also going to make an assumption that everyone watching this has read Ari's book, because if you want to go deep with all kinds of different ways to systemize, automate, outsource, it's really laid out there. And if you want to become a real ninja at this, then sign up for all his propaganda that he sells that teach people how to do that. But one of the things that I want to talk about, because it has to do with making money, is making yourself more effective so that you can focus on money-making activities. When you are focusing on money-making activities, you're maximizing that, so when you actually have a life and you have free time, you can really enjoy that. Because if you're in a situation where you're feeling constant pressure to have to work and to attend to a bunch of things, you can make a lot of money, but you never have a real life, and that's not enjoyable either. So I want to ask both of you about environments, because the way my brain interprets it, because I'm sitting here not only wanting to contribute and be useful, but also to pick up what I can from you guys to learn and apply, because I'm always looking for tools. I'm always looking for better ways to be more effective. And so when I hear Dean talk about the water bottle thing, well, I got a drawer full of water bottles, and they're really there and close, and a lot of people are like, well, great, am I going to get rich if I organize water bottles or whatever? Here's the way I think about it, though. It's about setting up the environment so it's friction-free, to use your words, and it's conducive for the way that you want to live. Like, one of the things that was really beneficial Dan Sullivan taught me by telling a story is he would always misplace his wallet, his keys, and his glasses all the time. And he sat down one day and calculated over the next 20 years how much time will he spend if he keeps misplacing them, even if it's like once a week, because he had this habit of, where'd my wallet go? Where'd my glasses go? What table did I sit them on? Are they by my bed? Are they in the kitchen? And he calculated it was like literally something like 100+ hours of time would be spent over a period of time if he didn't solve that. So he got a bowl for his office and a bowl for his house. And as soon as he came in to his house, he would put his glasses, his keys, and his wallet in the bowl. And when he would go to the office, he would do the same thing there. And that one little thing just reduced a tremendous amount of stress. Now, what does that mean? It's about setting up the environment. If you want to be productive, you need to have a productive environment. Good people in a bad environment will do bad things. Bad people in a good environment will do better things. And so if you want to be healthy, you can't have an environment filled with soda and Cheetos and sugar and a bunch of crap if you want to eat healthy foods. If you want to be productive, you have to find an environment that's productive. Many people have gone to church. This is not about religion. Many people have gone to church, and many people have drank beer, but most people don't drink beer in church. There's certain environments of where you go and how you do it. So as you hear things like what Dean just said, think about, okay, where's my environment? Do I have a cockpit where I work? Like, all of us are in different places. It appears like Ari has like a white sheet behind his head. Dean has some weird art with some dude and some fork underneath which I like that artwork, Dean. It's pretty cool. And this ain't very feng shui, but I'm in my conference room that has a whole bunch of books. But this right here is just sort of, if I want to come and read, and I want to come, I can come in here because I love libraries. One of the most, I'm in my building right now, which I own in Arizona, which is 11,000 square foot building. I have a stunning office. I have a 3,000 square foot area that's all mine. I have a bedroom that I built into it where I don't live here, but I've had, famous people stay here, and we do our meetings here. But most of my productive work is not even done in my office. It's actually done in a public library or a coffee shop, because there I'm not surrounded by stuff that's in my vision, because for a distractible person like me, I do better when I'm in quietness, or I'm in a place where there's just not my own stuff, because my own stuff makes my brain think of, oh, this, oh, this, oh, this. But that's just me. It could be completely different. So I just wanted to focus on environment, and I want to get Ari's suggestions on how does someone create an environment, especially if you have like children or you have things where you can't always escape noise, but you can still be productive. I'd love to have both of you speak to that.
Sure. So yes, I do have the sheet behind me. I decided that I'm in my gym, which is my lab and my office. I am very well. Okay, so I'll tell you really quickly what I do, because it's hard to apply necessarily. But I am never at a desk pretty much. So everyone loves to talk about their standing desks, which I think are great. I have a desk, and the only time I ever sit at it is when I'm doing a podcast interview. My desk, my workspace, is my iPhone for the most part. And that was something that I did in a very calculated way. That years ago, when I switched to Mac, I decided it was as a result of a computer meltdown with a PC. So I switched to Mac, and I was like, not only do I want to switch to Mac, but I want to make it as efficient a machine as possible, and I want to make sure that I never fall prey to a computer breaking again. So the only the only programs I allow on my computer are Dropbox, Chrome, and Skype. That's it. That's all I have on my computer. That's all I will ever have. That's all I have ever had on my computers for the past 3 or 4 years. And 4 years ago, that was a little bit more challenging. Now there's so many apps that work within Chrome. You can do screencasts within Chrome. You can do video recording you can do so much stuff with those 3 applications. I can put something into Dropbox and then have it be processed automatically by Wapwolf or Zapier or other websites. So I took that a step further a couple years ago and wanted to see if I could run my whole life and business from my iPad. And I did that for about a month, and there were a lot of challenges, and there were things that you just couldn't do 2 years ago. Like I couldn't open a AutoCAD file, and I was working, and still am, working in real estate. Now you can do that. You couldn't sign documents on an iPad. Now you can do that. Yes. So I took it further and wanted to see if I could do it from my iPhone. And I limited myself on a 1-week trip to LA to just my iPhone. And there were 2 things that came up while I was there, which I fixed on the go. And now I can and do run my entire life from my iPhone. In fact, the only thing that I can't do on my phone, actually I could, but the only thing that I don't like to do on my phone is to record Skype interviews, because the audio quality is not as good as if I'm using a really nice mic. And I went and spoke at the Bulletproof Conference on Saturday, and I took no bags. I had just what I was wearing. I had a folding Bluetooth keyboard in my pocket so that I could write a couple longer blog posts, which I did on the plane. And what I find is that setting limits is a big part of productivity and a big part of creating an environment that makes you productive. Mm-hmm. So as you said, you don't want to have the chips and the sugar and the candy if you don't want to eat badly. But what you're really saying is you don't want to give yourself too many options, right? So when you go to the coffee shop to work or the library to work, you can't talk to your wife or your assistant or play with your dog, or because they're just not there, right? So to some extent, I think that what I call sort of crowd isolation is something that I think is really effective for a lot of people, whether you work in an office or not. So first of all, when I do work, I don't like to listen to music, but I actually love listening to coffee house sounds. So you can go to websites like Coffeetivity or SoundDrown, or there's a ton of them now that play the sounds of being in a coffee shop. And they've actually researched this and shown that that level of noise is actually really helpful for productivity, because something about it, you can't identify specific conversations. It's not silence, so you're not really running away with yourself. It's kind of like white noise, but better, because it's basically the sound of activity, the sound of people doing something. So I really like that. And it also depends on the kind of work you're doing. If you're doing creative work, what I find is almost more important than the environment itself is learning timing, learning the best time for you to do certain things and not to do other things. And that requires, in some cases, some just really wonky experimentation. So for me personally, I really can't effectively do creative work before 8 o'clock at night. That's something that I've learned about myself. And so if I want to write something or I want to record some interesting thing, I'm going to have to do it after 8 o'clock at night. Earlier in the day is really the busy work time, the more admin stuff, because if a kid wants my attention, one of my kids wants my attention, it's easier to break in and out of doing something that's admin related. But of course, the creative stuff, I need to be isolated. I need to be like in my zone. So that's a very long-winded answer, but basically it's sort of like I think a certain kind of sound does have a really profound effect on some people, and some people do really well listening to classical music when they write. I don't, because I actually get too into the music. So something like the coffee house sounds is really great. I have not met a person who likes working in silence, honestly, because unless they're composing music maybe. But if you're writing, I feel like there's just too much room for your brain to fill the space. So essentially, the short answer is restricting yourself. restricting your space, restricting your inputs, restricting the sensory overload, restricting your options, so that all you have left is work.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I
Sounds
mean,
like
I think Dean likes listening to like really vulgar gangster rap, like old school NWA and Too
I do
Short.
that mostly. Yeah. That's
I like to
exactly
work out to that, but
Right.
well, Dean, I don't know, Dean.
Well,
What
I've
do you?
been using, I use focusatwill.com,
Yeah.
which is a fantastic streamer. I don't know what the magic is of it, but there's really helps me focus. The music is actually architected to get you into focus faster and keep you in that focus mode for 3 to 5 times longer than you can by yourself. And I found it to be absolutely true. It just is, it's a magical tool. I've turned a lot of people onto that, and I find it really helpful.
Well, even if it's a placebo effect, focus it well.
Right, exactly. I think part of the act is that setting the time. I do all the work that I do in 50-minute focus finders, so I'm doing 50-minute time zone. So that even you're right, probably a lot of it is the placebo or the effect of setting the timer for 50 minutes and pushing play, announcing to your subconscious your intention of I'm going to focus for this 50-minute period. And I think setting up those rituals, one of the things you talked about, like where you work, I think the environment is very possible because there's a lot of things that are, I call them reactive activators, because the problem when you sit down and you get to focus is not so much your desire to focus, but there are things that send you into a reactive zone. Like, the big ones are people coming in and interrupting or talking to you. Telephone calls, receiving telephone calls, or text messages. Email, having access to your email as a distraction while you're trying to get something done or hearing all of those things done. The good news is that those things, if you set up the proper environment, you can physically remove yourself from people, from the internet, and from the telephone by hanging, leaving your telephone out of the area or putting it on Do Not Disturb or being in an area behind a locked door. And those kind of things are what happen. But the thing that you can't escape as a reactive activator are what I call pop-up thoughts. And when you sit down to focus and you start to focus, and then all of a sudden, all these pop-up thoughts start coming to you, like, oh, I got to do this, or oh, I've got to do this right before. And so it's always a good idea before you're going to go into a series of focus finders is to sit down and even take 10 minutes just to get all that front burner stuff out onto paper so that when you go into the period of time that you're actually going to focus on one thing, you can focus on that one thing knowing that you've addressed the things that are going to pop up. Because often those pop-up thoughts that you have seem urgent and seem like they need to be done right now, but there's very little that can't wait 50 minutes, or that you can acknowledge and know when you're going to actually do something.
Absolutely. Timing is a big thing, honestly, that I talk about, and that's a good place to explain the difference to me between procrastinating and deferring. So with procrastinating, it's really an emotional thing where you're basically saying, I don't feel like doing this. And it's also a psychological issue where you're creating a disconnect between the future you and the present you, and basically thinking that the future you is going to deal with it, and that's a different person. And that's actually what happens with procrastination. But deferring is where you're saying, no, I'm taking an active role in deciding that there is a better time to deal with this, and that is not now. So
yeah, I've always found too, like the difference. I think when procrastination, the main things that cause procrastination at the base level are that you don't want something that you don't want to do, or something that you don't know how to do, or you don't know where to start. And so I've often found that when I focus, it's very important for me to understand what the verb is that I'm actually going to be engaging in this period of time. And that I've found, I made a list of verbs that are sort of my favorite verbs. I love, most of the time when people say, okay, you need to write this report or write this sales letter or write, use the word write. And that sounds so intense, and it sounds like it's, going to take a lot of effort. A lot of people aren't ready to go in and write because they don't know where to start. But everybody, including me, well, maybe I'm painting everybody with my brush, but the verbs that I love, that I'm up for at any time, that don't require any psyching up, are brainstorming. Brainstorming is my favorite verb. I can do that at any time. Then outlining is another level up from brainstorming, where now I'm putting some structure to this brainstorm. And then recording is my power move. I'd much rather record an audio. I'd rather record something with somebody, or record from an outline. I can talk about anything easier than I can sit down and write something. So I always look at picking the appropriate verb. So I came up with an acronym for BORE, B-O-R-E. So I bore through things. I brainstorm, outline, record, and edit. And those are the things that are kind of the power verbs for me for getting stuff done. Rather than writing, I try at all costs to avoid writing anything.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
Joe, I'd like to jump in here and ask you. We're listening to Ari and Dean, really, I think, two masters of the universe in this subject. I'd like to bring you back in, Joe, and just describe to the audience where you were before you met Ari, and what his coaching has done for you in a very short period of time, to where you now call him the world's, your favorite productivity expert. After all this time, knowing that this is a weakness of yours, and having access to anyone in the world, and training with people like David Allen, what has Ari taught you specifically that has saved you? And I don't even, I think I've heard on I Love Marketing your day rate, which you don't even want to charge anymore because it's not worth. It's usually not the best use of your time. Is something like $10,000, $50,000 for half a day of your time for consulting. Your time's pretty valuable. What do you think is the biggest impact that Ari's had on you in either finding lost time or becoming more productive with the time that you have in Zone?
Okay. Well, what I will say is I don't really like complimenting Ari while he's on here directly to his face, because I just, I tend to find myself as trying to be a nice person, but I'm not that nice. But what I will say, and as far as I'll land the plane in just a moment. Since you mentioned my day rate, and we can plug stuff, HireJoePolish.com actually lists what I charge. I'm $25,000 for half a day. So and I don't like doing that unless I'm extraordinarily excited about the project. I really want people to do like Genius Network and other things that I do, and I think about time as money if it's used right. And there's a financial paycheck, but there's a psychological paycheck. So becoming more productive is not just, so I can make more money or whatever. It's about so I can actually have a better life. I mean, I think what entrepreneurs really want is they want freedom, and freedom requires money, but there's relationship freedom, there's time freedom, there's financial freedom. There's a lot of different sorts of freedom. So there's many things that working with Ari has done. The first came from just giving me a different perspective, giving me a different paradigm to think about possibilities. Dean said something really important, that people procrastinate because they don't want to do something, they don't know how to do something, or they don't know where to start. And I'm a guy that can constantly get myself into a state of overwhelm, and when I'm really overwhelmed, what I learned about myself is that what brings instant relief to me is adding another project to my plate or flat out escaping. You know, and I'm a guy who's a former drug addict, so when you have like an addict mind, addiction serves as a soothing mechanism. And for a lot of people that are constantly overwhelmed, what they don't understand is it becomes a soothing mechanism for them to stay overwhelmed because it's the only cycle that they know how to satiate themselves with. So if they can't make an opportunity happen, they have a tendency, oh, let me do another opportunity. Oh, let me try this opportunity. And it becomes kind of like binge eating, but it's opportunity binging. It's seminar binging. It's book binging. I mean, binging can disguise itself in different ways. You know, workaholism is the respectable addiction in, this sort of achievement-minded, world. So Ari gave me a lot of specific techniques on how to handle emails, how to first think about hiring people to get things done when you have a really crappy, lame system isn't making you more productive. All it's doing is you're paying somebody to try to, help you, roll out an already ineffective sort of system. So he got me thinking as the different possibilities, all the way to just, how to deal with email, how to file email, how to respond to it, when to respond to it. I mean, simple little things like, followup.cc to not use your calendar as a dumping ground for all of your to-dos, to, not use it for that, but to actually remind yourself through different means is something that I just simply wasn't doing. And I have to tell you that I started working with Ari after I had paid a guy who had really good intentions, and I think for someone that wasn't, I'm a pretty busy, high-level entrepreneur. I mean, high-level not meaning like I'm like some super wealthy guy. I mean, I have a multi-million-dollar business, but I mean, I've clients that are worth hundreds of millions, and I have a few friends that are billionaires. Part of it is I deal with very high-level people, though, and so I hired a guy who I literally paid $15,000 to come in and help with my physical space and help with email systems and stuff. And I met Ari, and Ari got me into a more productive space by reading his book and by doing a couple of phone conversations with him. And part of it is just, I mean, he like in Less Doing and through the coaching that Ari does, I mean, he lays out how to go through everything. I mean, even what he was talking about in the video that was at my annual event that you were playing right before this started, where he's talking about fancy hands. I mean, just little simple things like that. But the first thing came from showing a possibility, showing that there's a different way to do stuff. Me and Dean constantly get into this whole conversation. We did a whole podcast on I Love Marketing, which is worth listening to, on execution versus ideas versus execution. And both Dean and I are really big idea guys. And without execution, it doesn't matter, because you're never going to get anything done if you have a good idea if you don't execute upon it. And so we have this conversation, and Dean talks about if you have flawless execution, if you're doing something extremely well, you're one of those unicorns that just everything's perfect, right? And you have flawless execution. The only thing that's going to improve flawless execution is a better idea. So when you get a better idea and you already have the execution, it just makes it better. So what Ari taught me is just a bunch of better ways to operate in the way that I'm going to operate. Last week I had dinner with Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google. The next day I talked with Larry Page. Eric Schmidt's worth $8.9 billion. Larry right now is worth like $33 billion. And Larry doesn't need to work for money, but this guy is working his butt off because he's got a big goal and objective. And what people miss about a lot of entrepreneurs is they're not like working their butts off so they can have a pile of money one day so they don't have to work anymore. I mean, there's a meaning behind this stuff. Like, I will always work. The concept of retirement, I am not a lifestyle entrepreneur. I'm an achievement entrepreneur. I think Dean is probably more of a lifestyle entrepreneur, although he wants to achieve stuff too. But I come from, so I'm always going to be a guy that wants to achieve. I will trade, and this is going to sound crazy to some people, and maybe I'm just not that involved and enlightened as a human being. I will trade peace for productivity over peace, meaning I would rather be productive than peaceful if it means I wouldn't be able to achieve. Now, frankly, I want to do both. I want to have more peace and serenity in my life, which is why I meditate twice a day, why I exercise, why I really strive to get good sleep. And at the same time, there's stuff that needs to get done, and I want to get it done. So Ari just gave me a lot of methodologies that I'm still working on, and I'm still learning, and I will continue to work with Ari, and I will continue to learn from him, because I don't think this sort of skill is sort of like exercise. You don't just go to the gym, have an awesome workout, and boom, you're done. You don't just eat a really healthy meal and, wow, your nutrition, I mean, this is like mental nutrition that you have to maintain on a regular basis, and like anyone else that's listening to this, I'm a student just as much as I am some dude that's sitting there talking about what I do and how I do it. So I feel like I'm just getting started with all the things that could be done. But just the email hacks alone are tremendously useful.
Yeah, and Joe, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Ari to dig into a couple of things that he's taught you, specifically email, because I used to try and run away from my email and check it, as little as possible, and I tried to outsource it. And when I came to Ari, I got to the point where email was a bigger source of stress, where I had someone else handle it for me. Then, now I'm handling it myself, and I'm loving it. And actually, anytime I'm stressed, I just go clear my inbox, because it's so easy. I can do it in 10 minutes using Ari's system, and I know that, okay, my brain is free, like Dean said earlier. So, Ari, can you give the listener some really specific tips that you showed Joe that they can walk away with and just implement right after they get off this? Because I really want people to leave with some specifics.
Yeah, it's really easy to summarize this, but people sometimes trivialize email, and it's just, oh, it's your email, it's just your email. But the truth is that it's actually a really, really important thing, because to me, email is the most wonderful productivity tool that's ever existed. Because what other possible medium could you use to have thousands of conversations at the same time across the globe? Remember it all, because you can search for it, trading images and in possibly different languages. I mean, it's an incredible, incredible technology, and you can take advantage of a lot more opportunities with it. But I've literally had situations where I've had somebody do a coaching call and tell me that they're having, problems in their relationship, and their business isn't going well, and their health isn't great, and go on and on and on. And my first question will be, how many emails do you have in your inbox? And sometimes that really kind of throws people back, because it's like, well, weren't you listening to me? All these other things are happening. Who cares about email? But the truth is that, first of all, it's a great productivity tool, and it helps you do more. But it gives you, if you can maintain inbox zero or near to it, and Joe is actually an exception, which I'm going to explain also. But if you can maintain a clean inbox, and more importantly than a clean inbox, a place of action, then you have a little bit of sense of control in an otherwise really overwhelming world. So that's really helpful. But the other thing is that email is a really good springboard for all of the other automation and outsourcing stuff that I teach, and even things that I don't know about, because you have a unique opportunity with email to be presented with 50,000 problems in one day. That doesn't happen anywhere else. You don't get that much mail. You don't get that many phone calls. But you can very easily, the average person can very easily get hundreds and hundreds of emails every day. And each one of those is an opportunity to do something better. So the reason I love that is that you can get an email and say, well, how do I deal with this problem? And the answer may be, I just respond to it, I delete it. But the answer very possibly could be, oh, well, I can go to Fiverr.com and hire somebody to take care of that little issue that this person was asking me about. Or I can forward this to my virtual assistant at Fancy Hands and have them take care of it. Or I can use IFTTT to set up an automation, so when I get these kinds of emails that go into Evernote, and I can deal with them that way. So email is a really good learning environment for that. So first of all, the exception I said to Joe is that Joe does not maintain inbox zero, and he hasn't, having worked with me, but what he does do now is process his emails in a much more efficient way. And the other thing reason I make an exception for Joe is that if you look I'm not going to give any names, but if you look at Joe's inbox, it's pretty much like a who's who of the most productive, most successful, most interesting people in the world. So, and Joe's mind works so incredibly that when he sees those names and he sees those in that list, it doesn't actually lead to overwhelm. It gives him more ideas. So it's the one person I've ever worked with where I don't really hammer him to maintain inbox zero, because it doesn't have to be inbox zero specifically. I think that's very important. But what's more important is that the inbox becomes a place of action. And a lot of people can't do that without it being inbox zero, but Joe does. So the way that you make your inbox into a place of action is very simple. 3 Ds. It's the only way that you can handle any email, and you only do it once. So either you delete it because it is no longer relevant, or it is spam, or it doesn't require your attention or require a reply. That's an easy one. You can deal with it because now is the time to deal with it, and you can do it in the next 5 minutes. And dealing with it could include delegating, so it's sort of a subset, 4th D. But you can, if you can deal with it right now or delegate it, then you do that. The 3rd D is the most interesting one, and that is to defer it. And we sort of talked about that before. Joe mentioned followup.cc. That's my recommended tool for doing that. Deferring it to a time that you can better deal with it. So followup.cc makes that really easy. All you have to do is send an email. You can forward that email to any time period you want at followup.cc. So it could be 8 p.m. at followup.cc or 1 week at followup.cc. You can also reply to somebody and then put that in the BCC field. So that's a lot of CCs, I know, but just check out followup.cc and it'll be a little clearer. But essentially, you pick that time, and then that email goes, you get rid of it, and it comes back to you at that time that you can best deal with it. And if you're wrong, it includes a snooze functionality right there in the email, a la followup.cc, so you can actually learn that timing. Because maybe I think that Friday at 10 a.m. is the right time to deal with this thing. And at Friday, 10 a.m., that email comes in, and I'm on a phone call I wasn't intending to be on. So now days have gone by. I've learned things. Business has progressed. Things have happened in my life. I'm, several days wiser. In that moment, I can say, well, I'll be off the call in about an hour, and I can deal with it then. Or I could say, maybe I don't actually have to deal with this till Tuesday. Push it to then. Or maybe it's no longer relevant at all, and I can just delete it. So it's a really, really interesting way to do it. So the 3 Ds are the ways to process your email. And by the way, that doesn't just go for email. Anything that comes your way, whether it's people requesting your time, consulting services, paper coming at you, the 3 Ds applies to everything in terms of how you effectively manage information coming your way. So either delete it or decline it if it's in person, defer it, or deal with it. And that's it. And that's the restriction. Those are your options. You can't come back to it later. You have to make a decision. And you get better and better and better at it. And then the one big tip that I always like to make to people is that you don't need to have multiple folders, many, many, many folders. You need one additional folder, your optional folder. And anything with the word unsubscribe in it should be automatically filtered into your optional folder. Now again, that's not junk. That's not garbage. That's something that maybe you want to look at or you would like to look at if you have the time. But it's not something that is essential. It doesn't matter who you are or what business you work in. If an email has the word unsubscribe in it, then it wasn't sent to you individually. So it's hard to justify that being essential. Essential is the stuff that you want to deal with in your inbox. And then if you have time, you can go to your optional folder and look at that stuff and be in optional mode. And you can go through optional emails 10 times faster than you can go through essential emails. So that's like the 3-minute summary kind of how to deal with your email.
Yeah. And Ari, one of the things I love that you taught on our mastermind group, and this is how geeky we get on email in there because everyone in there is so well tuned on your system, is if something makes it through your filter and you don't ever want to see it again, you might just go click and unsubscribe. Well, a lot of unsubscribe buttons, every one of those emails takes 5-10 seconds, sometimes more if they have some tricks on the unsubscribe page to deal with it. So what you've taught us how to do is just tag them as unsubscribe, and every week you have a recurring task in Fancy Hands, whereas an assistant follows a checklist to go spend 1 hour just unsubscribing from emails for you because you don't even have time to do that. You just want to tag them and get them out of there. And to me, that was just an amazing thing because I've sat there and unsubscribed from emails before, and it was annoying, but it was I never knew any way to think of it differently until you talked about it in the group.
Well, and the other thing too, by the way, about that is that I have no problem giving people my email address. If you can put it in the show notes of this if you want. I'm happy to get as many emails as people want to send me, or I'm happy to sign up for newsletters and email lists because the filters are in place. I'm not going to get things in my inbox that I don't need to get.
Yeah. Well, Dean,
Good.
Dean, how's your email going? I mean, what's some of the biggest learning points you've made, Dean, from as a pretty refined systems person yourself? What are some distinctions you picked up with Ari on your podcast and reading his book and working with him?
So, my systems maybe are a little bit different. I handle email maybe a little differently. So first I have an email address that only people that I actually give my email address to know what it is. I mean, I have an email address like my public email address that everybody knows, but I also have an email address that is only for people that I want to email me or that I'm actually going to, that I see personally. The rest of my email, I have a system where I have an assistant who goes through all of my email and will star the emails that require some personal attention, some that are requiring me to look at and have a response for. And so if I'm limited or have time, like these last couple of days I've been in a mastermind group, so I can look at my at the end of the day, or when I have limited time to actually respond to email, is that I can just look at my starred emails and I know that that's everything that I just need to address. So I can look at other stuff out of curiosity and respond to anything anytime. But that's the baseline of the system that I use.
Okay. And Ari, you've worked with a lot of high-end executives, and I think a lot of them are coming to you. Actually, you've gotten some referrals from people that Joe is sending your way, because I think the people you serve the best are the busiest people in the world, and they've got the biggest pain points. But if someone has an assistant that does their emails like Dean, how do you work with someone like that?
Well, first of all, when someone has a system that's working, I don't want to change it. So it's really someone like Dean or like Joe, who has some sort of system that's working. Sometimes I'll just have little tweaks that go into there, but more often than not, I'm dealing with people.
That optional. I love the optional folder with everything that has unsubscribe in it. That's I hadn't thought about that, but if it has unsubscribe in it, I mean, that makes sense, right? It means you have subscribed, or somebody has subscribed to something. That makes up probably 80% of the email that I get is stuff that either I've been subscribed to or have subscribed to or opted in for in some way.
Well, and so actually I have like 17 different terms in my filter: opt-in, managed subscription, all that stuff. And on average, I find it's about 60% of people. So like I've done this many times where someone has 10,000 emails in an inbox and I take them down to inbox zero in 15, 20 minutes. And just implementing that one filter is, I've seen 60, 65% basically. But anyway, a lot of it also.
Oh no! Remember there?
Yeah.
81,129 messages.
It'll take 20 minutes.
I have worked on a 99,000 inbox before. So, but so when someone does have a system that's working, then I start to look at mindset with them, and how they approach it. And usually if I go through I literally will sit over someone's shoulder and watch them go through their emails and just ask questions. Why did you handle it that way? Or, why did you skip over that? Or what can you do with that? Or when can you deal with that? And we just see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always amazed. You think about, I was thinking about how how it would actually be what I was trying to replicate with my having somebody go through it, having my assistant go through it and starring them, is to kind of get to where the inputs are more controlled. I look at, like, Joe and I talked about our friend Dan Sullivan, really does not get involved in that. Dan Kennedy doesn't even have email. I mean, it's faxing and all of the things. So just the thought that, it's okay if it happens once a day or something, in most cases, for me anyway, but some people may freak out if they're not getting, not looking at and responding to their email every hour or every couple of hours.
Well, so I'm glad you brought that up. So I have this concept I created called the human autoresponder.
Yeah.
Which I'm very proud of. So this is basically, everyone knows what an autoresponder is, and autoresponders suck, in my opinion, because you're going against my third fundamental, which is customization. You're providing a blanket response, and the thing that is made for everyone is made for no one. So an autoresponder, in the traditional sense, not only doesn't fulfill the need as far as I'm concerned, but a lot of times you can really piss people off. So I created the human autoresponder, and what this is I basically have this Evernote note with, at this point, I think 50 or so different pieces of information there. Everything from, where to find my bio and headshot, to who to contact about a particular building that I manage, to where to find more information about my coaching and my Crohn's story and all this stuff. 50 different things. And basically what happens is if somebody contacts me through my website, first of all, I never see that email. And certain keywords that are in Gmail, it'll also do this as well. But basically, those emails go directly to a Fancy Hands virtual assistant. And this is interesting to point out for people who aren't familiar with Fancy Hands. Fancy Hands is what's known as an on-demand assistant. So that means that you're never dealing with the same one. You basically put your request out to a pool of assistants, and any one of them can pick it up and do it. And there's a lot of benefits to that. But this is not somebody who knows your business. They don't know how you do things. They don't get to know you. So basically, I have this whole explanation. I mean, not even an explanation. I have all these different pieces of information. And I have a paragraph that essentially says that Mr. Meisel gets a lot of emails, and he is absolutely not too busy to answer yours, but he wants you to have the answer to your question faster than he might be able to provide it himself. And that's how I feel, honestly. If somebody can get an answer even an hour before I can respond to them, or 10 hours, whatever it might be, if they can get that information faster, that's what I want. So what the assistant is instructed to do is give them that initial paragraph and then use any of the information at their disposal in that Evernote note to create a personal, warm, and friendly response to that person. And it's amazing. It's cut down on 40% of the emails that I used to send, and as a lot of people may know, there is a boomerang effect to email. The more you send, the more you get. So I've avoided sending that, and it's people have written back to me several times to tell me how wonderful they thought it was to get that personal response.
How did they sign it?
I'm really happy with that.
Who signs the email?
Oh, it's from. I'm very transparent about it. It's from the assistant. I don't even have them use a less doing address. It's from a Fancy Hands assistant directly.
Gotcha.
Because I love it. By the way, somebody just wrote in the chat that they just applied the unsubscribe label and they came up with 21,000 emails for that. So it's good.
Well, Ari, in your ebook, you have a list of, I think, the 17 different filters you have in yours. So if the person would just take all those, maybe you can cut and paste those into the chat, and everyone can go apply that to their Gmail right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, when I get an email that gets through, that's like a mailing list email, I'm always kind of impressed. So I try to figure out how they did that. And the truth is, nowadays, if that ever happens, then it's legitimately spam. Where I don't know what the rules are, but you can't not have some sort of list management thing in your email anymore. Otherwise, it's a big no-no for Google. So.
Yeah. Well, Ari, I think you worked with some people who have assistants, and I think the point I was trying to make when I talked about that is you don't want to go into a high-level executive who has an assistant and get rid of that assistant, but a lot of them are now getting their assistants to take your training, to go through the system so that they're able to become a much better assistant for their executive. How's that working out in those cases that you do that?
Yeah, so one thing that I learned this from, well, not learned this, but this was on Joe's advice when working with extremely high-level people who, they're not necessarily going to implement any of these systems themselves. Is what I end up doing now is I'll work with that person's team to make them as efficient as possible, and then I'll work with that individual on a very high level of how to communicate most effectively with that newly optimized team. Because what I found, whether you're a three-person startup or you're running a multi-million-dollar company, what I find that founders and CEOs and presidents and stuff complain about most commonly is communication. Is that a lot of times they feel like they ask something of a team or a team member and they don't get back what they felt like they asked for. So working in a more optimized way, but also working with a virtual assistant is an amazingly interesting educational opportunity for anybody, because when you're working with somebody who doesn't know you, doesn't know your business, doesn't know how you do things, that's a really interesting parameter to put on yourself in terms of how you effectively communicate and delegate your needs.
Mm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So again, that's what I'm trying to say. No, and let me mention that too. Like everyone that works for me, I've given them a copy of Ari's book, and we whenever I want to adopt a certain methodology, I mean, I heard Dan Sullivan say that the fish rots from the head down, and so the person running the company, if you can make that person 10% more productive, you pretty much make everyone else in the company more productive if you have someone who's quote unquote the leader, the person given direction. So part of it is, to me, the ultimate leverage is to teach everyone that works around you, works with you, works for you, to be as effective as humanly possible, because it's the biggest way to support yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, I think of an employee as a behavior rental agreement. You're renting someone's behavior, and they're either going to make you money, save you money, or reduce stress. And when someone hires me for consulting, I have to behave. I'm a behavior rental agreement. People are renting my behavior. If they're going to hire Ari, they're doing the same thing. So what are you expecting that behavior to produce for you? And so when Ari talks about outsource as an example, he's renting behavior from fancy hands. It could be either a devoted person that does get to know you, or someone that you don't need to have any relationship whatsoever, but as long as you're clear on what that thing is. But yeah, like really high-level people, they all want to be more productive, but most of them are completely insane and driven and that sort of thing, which is fine, because the world advances on the backs of its neurotics, as Gary Halbert would say, and it's just a matter of helping them be a little less neurotic, or at least be more productive. Like one of the examples, my buddy Damon John, who's on Shark Tank. I've worked with Damon for probably last year and a half, and very sharp guy who has more opportunities than you could ever shake a stick at. And one of the things when he spoke at my last conference, he said, if someone hands me another business card, I don't even have the bandwidth to do anything with it. Now he has people that work for him that take the opportunities and filter them, and Damon's a very sharp guy. What I said, though, I go, you know what, I think Ari would be incredibly useful for you to talk with. So I set up a call with Damon and Ari, because Ari knows how to take someone who's already got more opportunities than you know what to do with, but just give them sort of an edge. But it also requires, if Damon wants to go deep with that, having his team be trained on how to be more productive, but also him first adopting the mindset, because there's certain things you have to be engaged in it. I think in order to get the most out of it, kind of like Jim Rohn said, you can't hire people to do your push-ups for you. There are certain things you got to do yourself, but there's many things you don't have to do that you could have, that you certainly can outsource and you could delegate. And when it, I don't know how useful this will be, but I'll say it anyway. I have a guy named JR that I work with a lot, who's read everything that Warren Buffett has ever written, and we're always dealing with very successful people. And the most successful, financially successful, doesn't mean they always have the happiest, sunshine and kitten sort of life. And one of the things that I noticed about people that make a lot of money and get a lot of stuff done is they have time management by attitude, which is they're like, I don't need to do any of this shit. So I could be more productive with it, but a lot of it I don't. If you take that too hardcore of an approach, you can get a lot of stuff done, but you become like a bulldozer of a person. You're not very nice. You're not very gracious. But if you balance it and you say, like just because someone demands something from me or wants something from me, you have to ask yourself a question. First off, do I want to do that? Do I really need to do that? Is that really going to serve my purpose? And one of the things that you'll learn from Ari if you kind of read between the lines on even a lot of the techniques is it's not about doing more stuff. Less doing. If you just take the words less doing, it's really about saying yes to the right things and saying no to the other things. I love Derek Sivers' thing. It's either a hell yes or a no. It's either a hell yes or a no. And so what I'm striving for is everything that is a hell yes to me, make sure I'm not deluded by what should be a hell yes. Oh, maybe this is a hell yes. It's like if you have to think about it, it's not a hell yes. If you have to be like, well, I don't know if I should go to lunch with that person. There could be a big opportunity, but if if it's not there, then it's a no. And so first off is doing that, but once you know that this is the hell yes things, how can I do the very best job humanly possible with those things? And that comes from you being just a fit person, fit mentally, fit physically. I mean, there's so much of this that's not a technology fix. A lot of it is how you eat. I mean, when one of the things I think I was first attracted to with Ari's work is that this is a guy that was physically in danger. He had a disease, and he had to figure out how to make his life work because there were consequences to that if he didn't. Not just, he's not going to be able to pay his rent. He's like, no, he's married. He has children. He has a life. He has a physical body, and he could die if he doesn't get certain things figured out. So, I think most of the physical pain, the lack of sleep, the addictions, all of this stuff comes from just massive psychological torment and disharmony that comes from not having your shit together and saying yes to things you shouldn't even be saying yes to. I mean, there's a much deeper meaning to being productive other than, you can say that I have an empty inbox. I mean, it goes way beyond that. Hopefully what I just was rambling about made some semblance of sense to
No, absolutely.
Joe, I think that was an amazing point about, and I asked you at the beginning, and I actually go through this with a lot of people we speak to who are applying for Ari's coaching program. What is your time worth to you? And they can usually quantify it at entrepreneurs, hundreds of dollars an hour. There's thousands of dollars an hour work. There's really high value time, but to be honest, most people don't even know what their time's worth, especially entrepreneurs. It's hard to measure. But more importantly, your happiness is so much more important than the money you could earn. And the thing I love hearing from you and Dean tonight is, I think Dean's favorite saying is, success is not needing to wear a watch or something like that. Where like that's a state he wants to be in. It's not about a money goal. It's not about anything like that. And I did an interview with six-time Ironman world champ Mark Allen, and he told me he'd lost 6 of these races in a row, and he said he finally won when he stopped caring about the outcome and he became focused on the process of the race. And you guys, to me, and Ari said this at the beginning, I just want to get better each day. It's not about some big magical goal at the end of the rainbow. It's about enjoying the process of becoming more productive. And I think the reason Ari is so productive is he just loves finding like little wins in productivity. And you and Dean are so productive in business because you guys just love delivering value and just getting better each day at the art that you're doing. And I think a lot of people get so fixated on a money goal, and then when you finally get it, it's never good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can I say something too? If someone wants to run $1 million a year business, like I started out as a dead broke carpet cleaner living off credit cards, and I learned direct response marketing, which is really about what to say and how to say it so that people will respond and end up hiring you. So marketing is storytelling, selling is influence, and I really learned how to be more effective at selling and influence so that people would do business with me. And what I ended up doing was transforming this small carpet cleaning company where I was, $30,000 in debt in my, early 20s, and this was starting back in 1990. So I'm 46 years old. I'll be 47 in a few months, and basically I started teaching other carpet and upholstery cleaning companies the methods that had taken me from struggling to figuring out how to transform a business and make it work. And so I have thousands of service businesses in all kinds of different industries now throughout the years that have utilized my marketing methods. Me and Dean Jackson have hundreds of thousands of people that listen to our podcast. We have the top marketing podcast on iTunes and all that jazz called I Love Marketing. And what I would get in the conversations with people about is, you ask them, what do you want to do? I want to have $1 million a year business. But you sit and look at their skills, their rituals, their habits, their behaviors, and they don't have $1 million a year, rituals or habits or skills. And if you want to have $100,000 a year business, you have $100,000 a year skills. If you want to have $1 million a year business, you have $1 million a year capabilities. But people that are not willing to pay with time, money, or energy to develop those capabilities never do it. I mean, they just don't. And the thing that a lot of positive self-help people will not, point out is that a lot of people are losers. Not that they're bad human beings and not that they're not worth something, meaning they just don't have a winning attitude. They just have a sense of scarcity. They play not to win, but they play not to lose. They don't play to win, they play not to lose. And so they're operating out of this scarcity standpoint. And entrepreneurs literally take risks. They don't take stupid risks. Sometimes they can make crazy risks. And I'm not saying there's not stupid entrepreneurs. There's stupid people in all areas. And there's certainly many areas where I'm an idiot. And so, but what I have an awareness of is that I suck in this area. I want to get better in this area because I want to get better capabilities. Who can I go to? So if I suck in terms of how to deal with my email or how to be productive, I'm going to go to someone like Ari who doesn't suck. And I'm going to get that capability and build that capability. So my life of growth always consists of, if I want to be here, I can't do it with capabilities here. But if my opportunities and my aspirations and dreams are right here, I have to build the technological capabilities, the organizational capabilities, the marketing capabilities, the management capabilities, the financial capabilities to match the opportunities. And once I've developed all of these capabilities at this level, if my opportunities I'm working on are here, I better make those opportunities equal to my capabilities or I need to get rid of them. Because that's what causes people stress, is they get skilled, but they're still working on lesser mortal stuff relative to themselves. And so the point I'm trying to make here is if you really want to win, this doesn't, it requires courage to do stuff, to grow. There are certain pains that are just painful, and there are certain pains that are useful pain, like working out in a gym. I don't really enjoy it. I don't like the physical exertion, but I love the consequences. I love the growth. I love the energy that comes out of it. So there are certain sacrifices I'm willing to do. And in something like learning how to develop this skill, Dan Sullivan says nothing feels good in the middle. If you kind of like, oh my God, I've got an inbox with 90,000 emails and I want to figure it out, well, sitting around wishing ain't going to make it happen. You actually have to take some steps and do stuff. So as you start to take the steps, it's not going to feel good right here. But as you go through it, it will. And so every person that's ever, and there are people that are watching this right now that have joined Ari's coaching program as an example. And they're now going through the process. So guys like you got, Sam, you've seen results. You're like, this is awesome. And you get to an engagement state. But there's a lot of people that'll be like, should I spend the money? Oh, it's going to kind of suck. Oh, I'm going to have to learn how to do something different. And that's sort of a painful thing. And people that never progress in life, they can't go through that level. They wimp out. They like, oh, they don't have the stamina in order to do it. But some people are like, shit, man, I have a family, I have dreams, I have aspirations, and I know my inability to do this is holding me back, so damn it, I'm going to invest some money, I'm going to invest some time, I'm going to learn how to do it, and then I'm going to go through the process until I can become better at it. And then I'm going to kick ass, and then I'm going to start getting results. And some people are treadmill entrepreneurs, they never go anywhere, and some people are ladder entrepreneurs. They just keep climbing the ladder. And some people are survival entrepreneurs. They'll never invest time, never invest money, never invest energy. Those are the people that wouldn't even be watching this right now because they don't even want to learn through the experiences of others. So the question is, the only people that we can even help anyway are people that really have the mindset that they're willing to put in time, money, and energy. When I didn't have any money and I was living off credit cards and dead broke, I certainly had energy and I certainly had time, because if you say you don't have time but you're not making money, then it's because of how you're spending your time. Everybody has the same 24 hours as every other person, and everyone can make excuses. Yeah, I have kids. I didn't have this. I didn't have that. But the fact is, we got to play it where it lies. You got to work with the tools in your toolbox, and the greatest tool that you have is your ability to say yes to this and no to that. And so it's just, what are you going to say? Everything you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. And so if you sit and look at people that don't produce results in life, they're like, oh, I can't do this. Well, are they watching a lot of TV? Probably. Are they reading really useful stuff? Do they watch a lot of the news? I mean, do they spend their time hanging out with their other loser friends that like have the same sort of pity mentality that they can't be done? Probably. So, shifting to a whole nother level requires breaking through. If you want to have a breakthrough, you got to break something, and that's going to start with your mindset and your mental space. And so the purpose of this tangent is some people will listen to it, and hopefully it will be a catalyst to say, let's go back to that same cliche everyone's heard a million times. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Everybody has heard that, but when's the last time you actually sat down and pondered on what the hell that actually means for even like 10 minutes? Like literally every person that is not getting a result in a particular area is because they're doing something in a certain way that is not producing a result, and they just haven't gotten in touch with the consequences of what that behavior or ritual or lack thereof is creating for them, and so therefore they're not doing something about it. So hopefully the three of us sitting here talking will just be a ray of sunshine for people that can say, hey, this is encouraging. And other people will just hate my guts and will think I'm a scumbag. But beyond that, I hope that the people that are out there, you got to say, look, you either have the juice or you don't. And if you have no drive and no ambition and you're burnt out and you're tired, what is causing that? I mean, what is the root cause of it? What is all of these burnouts and hating stuff are symptoms of a much deeper thing. You're either not following really your dream, you're not developing skills in a particular area, you're hanging out with people that are negative, lazy, that sort of stuff. And so where can you go? And what I would when I didn't have any encouragement in my life, I would go to books. I would go to learning. I mean, people will say, Joe, why do you read so many books? I've over 1,000 in this particular conference room. I can show you here. I've over 2,000 books in here. I've read over 1,000 books. But, I read it because it keeps me encouraged. I'm one of these people that if I don't constantly fill my head with perspective, I actually can get kind of bummed out. And I can get sort of like, and I'll start whining and complaining about stuff. And so part of it is just, to me, it's just a mechanism that I've learned how to keep me up. So, I mean, even, listening to Ari, having conversations, having a genius network is what I call it, that constantly, keeps me in place. So if you want to develop genius level results, you need to develop a genius network. So Dean Jackson is part of my genius network because Dean is a brilliant marketer. He's a brilliant thinker. Ari Meisel is part of my genius network as it relates to what he's skilled at, to productivity, to learning how to say no, to learning how to delegate, to learning how to do a lot of those stuff. And so all of the things that you know, and here's the last thing I'll say. There was a book called The Book of Survival by Anthony Greenback, and he says to get through an impossible situation, you don't need the reflexes of a Grand Prix driver, the muscles of a Hercules, or the mind of an Einstein. You simply need to know what to do. And I've thought about that saying a lot of times where, you know, there are a lot of situations that seem impossible, and you're like, oh, I need to be superhuman. No, you don't. You just simply need to know what to do. And if what the people that are watching this right now, if you want to get from here to here, and it really is realistic, like it is a possibility that you can do that, you simply need to learn what to do. And productivity literally is the foundation that is needed, because you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you never spend any of your time developing it, who cares? And what's keeping you from doing that is just a bunch of ineffective methodologies and systems. So I will zip it right now.
Well, I think that's probably one of the most effective non-rah-rah motivational rants I've ever heard. I start doing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. I hope that's the case. So we'll see. Are the comments going, I don't like Joe Polish, or are they sort of...
No, nothing like that.
Joe, I was in the Army. You would have been a great Army officer, because we hated that positive stuff in the Army, and you just really motivated me.
Good.
So, well, Joe, I don't, you know, one of the things I'd like to do, because we are a bit over the time, but I think listening to you and Dean and Ari, no one's left this at all, but we're going to give everyone, we've set up for Ari, as you know, he has a mastermind that you and Dean have attended some of that, and Dean, thanks for the contributions on the Facebook group in there. It's been really just a great lab of productive people talking. But one of the things that for high-end executives you identified in your coaching with Ari is a lot of them want to give their assistants high-level training from Ari that they don't have time to go through. So Ari, I'm going to throw this over to you and talk about the boot camp that you've developed and just describe it. And then Joe, I think I'm going to let you close this out with a little bit more, you know, just tell people what the boot camp's done for you. And I think that will be a great close to the show, just adding on to what you just said, you know, and we'll close that loop that you opened there.
Yep.
So.
Sure. So, well, the boot camp, I'm pretty excited about. Basically, what it is it's an 8-week program. It's a group coaching program to take people through the fundamentals of my less doing system. There are 9 fundamentals. I'm combining 2 of them into one of the sessions. But basically, we're doing a 1-hour weekly call with the group. I'll probably talk for about 40 minutes of that, and then there's going to be some question and answer. But they're also going to get into a private Facebook group where they can ask any question they want about anything having to do with productivity or the system, and get answers not only from me but from everybody else in the group. And what I'm really excited about too is that everyone who goes through the program is going to be added to the same Facebook group. So I'm hoping to have several hundred people in that group at some point that will just have the best possible answers to any productivity challenge that comes up. And I'm pooling resources from some really great knowledge sources such as Joe and Dean and many others. So it's very straightforward. It's going to be just take you through all of the fundamentals on a very deep, intensive level on each one. And there's no question that people are going to be way more productive after they go through it.
Yeah.
And then it's a lead-in to people to either end up going into the higher level mastermind that I run, or they could end up becoming less doing coaches themselves.
Yeah. And on that note, we've actually developed a system before we even invite anyone into the Less Doing boot camp. We have a 45-minute strategy session with one of the coaches that you've trained, Ari. There's a couple of them. I'll actually be taking a few calls myself. You know, just to see if the boot camp's the right fit, and then if it is, we'll give you all the details on there. So if you're interested in a boot camp, you can click on the button below and do that. But I'm going to toss it over to Joe now to close his rant, because Joe.
I'm going to ask some specific questions. First off, Ari, what will happen to someone after they go through it? What is the offer and what is the promise? Worst case scenario and best case scenario if they go through the boot camp with you. What's going to happen to them?
Worst, worst case, I guess they'll end up with a cleaner inbox, which I think is a big deal. No, I mean honestly, worst case is they're going to end up saving an hour of their day every day. There's just no question that they're going to be able to save that much time. Best case is that they're going to be the most productive they've ever been in their lives. They're going to be able to take advantage of the ideas that they've had, but they just haven't had the time to even think about. And this is going to apply to people who either they're entrepreneurs now, or they want to be entrepreneurs, or they're already have they have a startup company, or even if they're in a corporate job and they just want to be able to be more productive at home and stress less and have ways to be more productive in everything they do. I'm going to touch on all of those things. And by the way, wellness is one of the fundamentals. It's the ninth fundamental because my journey started with health, and I believe that no matter how technologically efficient I might be able to make somebody become, if they're not sleeping well, or they're not eating right, or they have too much stress in their life, they're simply not going to be as effective as they possibly could be. So that's sort of the capstone of the whole program too, is a little bit of biohacking, making yourself smarter, stronger, happier, so that you can really be that effective person. As you talked about, it's not just about clearing your inbox or making more money. There's a much bigger picture here. So I guess the very worst case is that this is going to be a stepping stone in a very good direction for anybody who goes through it to start doing more of the things that they want to do. And then the best case is they're going to be able to achieve all of their hopes and dreams, essentially.
And how can you say how much you charge for
it? Sam, can we? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you want to hold off on that? Maybe you've got some sort of special setup or anything. But I've
outsourced this. Sam is in control.
Well, here's what I'll say, Joe. The Ari's coaching program, the mastermind group, the high level one is $4,500 a quarter, and the boot camp is definitely a better deal than is a better price point for someone who's not quite sure. Better deal. Not quite sure that they're ready for that level of commitment. It's actually a way for them to get indoctrinated into the system and decide what the next step is for them. Because a mastermind is a large commitment of time and resources that is really paying off for the people in the group. But we'll go over all that on the call. What we want to do on the call first is just deliver a ton of value and make sure that we've identified, hey, do you have time to save? Are you going to get something out of this program? And then we'll definitely go over all the details. So that's the way we're getting people into the boot camp.
Yeah, okay. Now, the reason I bring that up is so some people, smart people are people that measure value by the quality of the information, by the quality of the training. Dumb people are people that measure something by the pound. A really smart person would rather pay, $1,000 is like, the late Gary Halbert would say, would rather pay $1,000 for 10 pages of really useful information than, $10 for 300 pages of fluff. And so the way that I look at making an investment in any sort of personal development, and I'm a guy that has spent over $100,000 a year on my business, on my training, on my skills, and my capability for over 15 years. I've spent well over $2 million learning much of the stuff that I've done, which has allowed me to actually build the type of company that I've built. And when it comes to spending money, you have to ask yourself, is this going to solve a problem that if I solve this problem is going to produce an incredible result? No one wants to join Ari's coaching program. No one wants to listen to my and Dean's podcast. No one wants to attend my $10,000 person seminars, but people do. Why do they do it? Because these people want results. And in order to get results, they need capabilities. And if you've read Ari's book and you're excited about it, but you're still not doing stuff, if you've listened to this and it's piqued your interest or it's motivated you and you're like going, oh, I could do that, you have to ask yourself, what is going to give me the highest possibility is one thing, and the highest probability that that's going to happen in my life. And where that'll come from is actually getting personal coaching in it, getting specific training, because in order to get results, you need capabilities. And if you don't have the capabilities, you're never going to produce a result. So think about it as the money that you're trading off, you're giving that in exchange for getting capabilities from Ari. Now, do you guys 100% guarantee the boot camp if someone goes to it? If they don't like it, will they get their money back?
Definitely.
Okay, good. So that's the
If they
deal. So,
show up and do the training.
what's that?
If they show up and do the training, of course.
Yeah, no, there should be the condition on that. The person should actually show up, and if you're not willing to show up, then you ain't showing up for your own life. You can't blame someone else for doing it. But if you do show up, and Ari and you deliver the training, and people become better, then you're going to look at the investment as going, that was really one of the smartest things. So my whole thing, since you asked me to close this thing out, I would say yes to yourself and vote for your bigger future and your bigger life and getting results, or say no, but don't say maybe, because maybes never get you anywhere. Maybes are sales killers, dream killers, progress killers. Maybes suck. Say no, I'm not going to do this, or yes, I am. And if you are going to say yes to it, half of the battle of getting value out of Ari is not, it doesn't matter what the hell you guys are charging for this thing. I mean, certainly there's a limit. You're not going to charge $100,000 and expect anyone to sign up. But the point is, the fact that someone will put their own money on the line in order to learn a capability ensures that they're in a much better position to do it. I mean, I cannot tell you how many books I've given to people for free versus someone that actually pays for the book. The person that pays for the book that really wanted the book actually has a much different mindset that someone that hasn't. And I know the value of what Ari teaches, and I would almost go as far as saying if anyone really goes through the whole training and whatever the hell you guys charge, and it really, and you do it, you actually implement it, you utilize it in your business, and it doesn't change your life, I would personally give them their money back. Because so the whole thing is, so if
the Joe Polish double your money back guarantee, right?
Yeah, God, I hope I didn't open up the woodworks. There's a bunch of idiots that aren't going to do anything. But what I will say, in all sincerity, look, I really appreciate entrepreneurs. I mean, I really appreciate, being an entrepreneur is hard work, and people have to pay for this with money that they've had to exchange their time and their effort and their energy in order to have the money. So spending money is not an easy thing to do unless the return on it is going to be absolutely great. And I don't know a better sort of investment that someone can make other than being a more effective human being in either leveraging yourself. See, the definition of productivity is maximum results, least amount of time. Definition of leverage is maximum results, least amount of effort. If you go through several weeks of training of Ari's stuff, you're going to be incredibly more productive. You're going to know how to leverage the resources and assets and relationships in your life and the technologies in a much greater level, and it's going to put you into a much better position, and you're going to create a lot more value. And so money earned ethically is a byproduct of value creation. I know Ari. I know he's going to deliver incredible value, that he cares about what he does. He's a good guy. He's a good person. So you're not signing up to get training from someone that has an idea. This is a person that is a byproduct of that and has successfully helped many, many people transform their lives. And if you're one of those people that want to do that, go ahead and do it. And whatever fears you have that say, do it or don't do it, I mean, you really need to come to grips with, it's your life, it's your bigger future. And with what Ari said, worst case scenario, you're going to save an hour a day, or you're going to have a clean inbox. Let's just say, it's an hour a week. Well, how much is an hour of your life worth? And if you do that by 4, that's, in a year's time, if you just save an hour a week, and you're not going to save just an hour a week, you're probably going to save 7 hours a week or 10 hours a week. You're probably going to drop doing a bunch of crap that you shouldn't even be doing anyway. It's probably going to absolutely transform your life. But let's just say it's 1 hour a week, and you go out for an entire year. Okay, how much is 52 hours of your life worth? I mean, if someone came up to me and said, I'm going to give you an extra 50 hours of your life, Joe, what would you pay for that? I'd pay a shitload of money for that. And I do. That's why I hire Ari. That's why I do this sort of stuff, because I just want to keep getting better. So, I mean, I don't know if that's the most motivating sales pitch that I could give, but, I would just encourage people to just do it. And give me your feedback. And, look, no one says any of this stuff is going to be easy, but I have a friend named Dave Kekich who's in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the chest down, who figured out how to transform his life, who figured out how to make millions of dollars, who devotes his time to life extension technology. He's a wonderful human being. He's 70 years old. And he says life's easy, when you live it the hard way, and hard if you live it the easy way. And so what that means is, you know, it's not easy to exercise every day, but it's much harder if I don't. It's not easy to learn how to build a new technology on how to figure out how to be more productive with your email, but if you spend several hours a day in front of an inbox or staring at a screen, you know, damn it, it'd probably be a smart idea to learn how to be maybe 10% better or 20% better or maybe 100% better at that, because that little thing will change your life. And then you couple in dozens and dozens of little things that you're going to learn through going through the boot camp with Ari. Well, guess what? That's how you become a ninja. That's how you become like a badass. And so that's why people should really take a serious look at doing it and investigate it. I mean, really listen to the call that you guys are going to be on, go through the whole program, and make a decision. You know, is my life worth, you know, this investment? And if it is, do it. And if it's not, you know, don't.
Dean.
I was thinking the same thing.
Batman and Robin. I'm still trying to figure out which one is which, but I'm going to let you put the cherry on the top there for Joe.
There we go. I was going to say exactly the same thing that Joe just said, in fewer words probably. But that, you know, the whole thing is
9 words.
Learning from somebody who has made it their life purpose to find the most. To focus on making you as productive and using leverage as much as you can, like Ari has, like this environment of the Facebook group, even that, being able to share in there with people. There's just so much value. It's one of the things that unlocks the door to so many more things that you want to do in your life. I mean, being able to manage the 16 or so waking hours a day that we have, that we only have it today. And so making sure that you can leverage that and get as much as you can out of it is really an incredible investment. So I echo everything that Joe said. It's just, that's why the successful people, the most successful people, you see are people who often spend the most on improving themselves, you know, on working on their own life and their life skills. So yeah. I would encourage it 100%.
Thank you, Dean, and thank you for appealing to the people who respond to the vanilla and sugar and spice approach, because I think Joe just scared all the rest of them into it. So.
No, you know, and look, the reason, and I'll say this, the reason I actually have strong opinions about all of this stuff is when I was dead broke, struggling, living off credit cards. I mean, I'm a former drug addict. I mean, when I was 18 years old, in my worst state, I weighed 105 pounds from freebasing cocaine. I kind of know what self-induced pain actually, you know, can create. I mean, I know a lot about self-sabotage. I know that the dangers of missing the ability to take the right steps and go down a path that's going to help you in a better way versus taking a self-destructive path and saying, you know, no to things that really can change your life. And so I have no qualms telling people to invest time, money, and energy, because I myself have done it. Half my life, you know, there are people that have it far worse than me. I don't live in a third world country. I mean, I'm dealing with first world problems. So, you know, I mean, you know, I have a pretty good life. However, I worked really hard in order to get there. And one of the greatest things to help people is not that there's great productivity and advice and books and information that are out there, because there's a lot of people that have written incredible books and taught things, but learning who really is the best versus who's mediocre. And, you know, and Ari kicks ass. Ari is awesome. And if you want to spend money to learn how to be more productive, he's a guy that you could bank on. Dean Jackson calls it bankable results. Mm-hmm. This is not going to be spending money. This is going to make you money. This is not going to cost you any time. This is going to give you time back. You got into business because you wanted freedom. This is going to give you freedom. If you have a family that you're not spending enough time with, is it going to magically fix itself? No. Do you want to learn how to be more productive so you can hire better people, so you can make more money? It ain't going to magically fix itself. You got to do something about it. So a lot of the you know, I mean, I know I have sarcasm and I know I have like an attitude with this, but I mean, come on, be real. I mean, people could say, oh, he's just trying to do a high-pressure sales pitch for his buddy Ari. Well, you know, call it whatever the hell you want to call it, but the fact is, if you're not very productive or if you're not where you want to be, you wouldn't be listening to this anyway. You wouldn't be piping in. So clearly everyone we're talking to is interested in the subject matter, and so if you want to go deeper with it, the way to go deeper with it is go deeper with it. Make an investment, participate in the stuff, and then I'd love to hear people's feedback. I mean, I wouldn't be. I have a really damn good reputation too. Knock on wood. I mean, I've been doing this stuff for 20 years, and you know, I've always delivered value to people, and I don't recommend things that I don't know anything about. I mean, people ask me all the time, "Will you endorse my book? Will you do this? Will you do that?" And it's like, you know, no. I only if I read it, only if I know the person, only if I've gone through it. And so I have a very in-depth experience with Ari, and I know his stuff is dialed, so I would recommend that. And can I give one last plug? Today an article came out with me on Forbes. I just got a text. It's the #3 most trending article on Forbes.com ever. Here's the thing. So I want everyone to at least read it and do that. So, but you know, it's that sort of thing. But you know, do it. I mean, it's your life, and I, you know, anything that I can contribute also. I'll tell you this, if someone goes through the whole program, Ari, you know, me and Dean have produced thousands of dollars worth of marketing content that we actually sell to people. And if you have someone go through the whole boot camp and go through the whole thing and give feedback that and literally think back to this and say, yeah, Joe was right, this really helped, and they actually can say, I did this, you know, come up with some criteria, I will happily give your students that go through this, and this ain't a joint venture. Ari's not paying me a penny for saying any of this stuff. I mean, Sam, you might ask me to close this out with a productivity pitch. Here I am pitching this boot camp thing. What I will say is, if someone goes through the whole program and they document the results and they produce great results, me and Dean will give them something of our materials equal just for doing it, just to help them. We'll give them interviews, we will give them strategies and that sort of stuff, because I really want people to transform their lives.
Joe, thank you, and thank you both of you. Everyone, just so you know, I had no idea Joe was going to offer that, so I'm flattered. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be like a grab bag, but it will be worth it.
Joe, I didn't even attempt to give you a script or even an outline for this show because I knew that it would, you know, like we said in the Army, no plans survives first contact with the enemy, and I think no marketing conversation with Joe Polish is going to survive the first word.
Mike Tyson says everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Exactly.
True.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, look, I'm going to bring this home, guys. First of all, I just want to thank the man of the hour, Ari. I know you didn't get a lot of words in towards the end here, but I think that's by design. You're so humble, and one of the reasons I like working with you is you don't sell yourself, you just produce amazing results, and I just think that your stuff deserves to get out there. And Joe and Dean, I don't think you guys know this, but I'll just say it publicly. I think about 3 years ago, I was still in the Army. I was running in Manhattan on the weekend, and I was listening to your podcast, and it really just changed my life. It inspired me to join a mastermind with James Schramko, and I've been listening to it ever since. And I got out of the Army, and one of the reasons I got out was I loved every minute of what I did in the Army, but I knew it wasn't my ultimate life's work. And it took a lot of things to get out, a lot of courage, and I don't even have a family. And you guys really inspired me to do that, to get out and pursue what I'm doing right now, you know, digital publishing and my future plans. I just want to publicly thank you guys for. I hope that's something that, you know, I know there's thousands of stories you've never heard like that, so I just wanted to publicly tell you mine. And, you know, thank you for getting on Ari's bandwagon here, because you know, he's really changed my life and a lot of people I've seen around me in the mastermind group. So thanks again for showing up.
Thank you. You're welcome. Love hearing that too. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's it, everyone. I guess it's a wrap. So I wish everyone, wherever you're at, whatever part of the world, have a very good night, and look forward to hearing everyone's results. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
I just want to say thank you for making Less Doing a part of your life. I am so excited to have you be a member of this community and to see what you're going to be able to achieve once you start to optimize, automate, and outsource everything that you do. Now, I just want to give you one last gift, totally free, and that is a 45-minute on-the-phone consultation with one of my Less Doing certified coaches. A little while ago, I created a Less Doing boot camp to train coaches so that they could go through the fundamentals with me and go on a very deep dive on how to actually implement every aspect of my system. I've taken them through this program, so I know that they know how to teach this stuff to you. So all you have to do is get on the phone with them for 45 minutes. You can talk about whatever your productivity challenges are, but they are going to help you identify that one big thing that is keeping you from unlocking your full potential. Because just saving a little bit of time, you're going to be able to study more of this material, learn more of how you can implement Less Doing in your life, and again, get more done, be happier, stress less, be more effective. Everything that we've talked about. So one of the things that you're going to find out on that call is about that Less Doing bootcamp. And you're under no obligation to do it, but if you do want to go through that, then you're going to be that much better informed about how the system can apply to you. So go ahead and schedule that call, identify that big productivity challenge, overcome it, and again, welcome to the Less Doing community.
If you have the chance to join Ari Meisel's Less Doing Bootcamp, you're going to take your productivity to the next level. So all the stuff you learned in the videos, you're going to kind of do one step beyond that, plus you're going to be able to leverage the amazing group of people that are also doing it, who sometimes have even better answers than Ari has for some things. So it's just an amazing group. Ari's amazing, and you're leveraging a lot of really smart, successful, whatever random questions you have, whether it's about biohacking or it's about being productive, or just, you know, what size iPhone are you going to get? And it's a good group of people to bounce ideas around with.
If you're considering the mastermind with Ari Meisel, I highly recommend that. Investing that time and going to the mastermind will significantly benefit you, because it's taking it to the next level. You always get what you put in from anything. And by taking it to the next level, approaching it more seriously, approaching it with more attention and intention, you get the result back tenfold. And it's great because you are going to be interacting with the guy, Ari Meisel, who has put a lot of time and effort and thinking behind all of this. So the answers are there. And if they are not there, we know where to go to find them. And that just saves a lot of time and energy and get things done faster and better.
So if you have the opportunity to work with Ari in the Less Doing Bootcamp, each week you're going to focus on a certain topic. For instance, email. Ari is going to present to you the philosophies and some methodologies on how to manage your email. You'll have the opportunity to interact with Ari one-on-one, either during the session or after the fact, where you can interact with your peers on Facebook as well in the Facebook group. I actually just spent the last half hour or so working on archiving 29,000 emails and 4,000 unread emails. But it's really getting me to the point where I can manage my email in a very stressless way and continue the methodology for a long period of time.
If you have the opportunity to do the Less Doing, More Living Bootcamp with Ari Meisel, you're taking all of his techniques to the next level. You can sit back on your own and implement some of these strategies. But when you're sitting there in a very confined, concentrated time on one subject, you walk away as a master of that subject. So email becomes easy. You control email. Email doesn't control you anymore. Delegating work, finding virtual assistants, what tasks to give to a virtual assistant. It isn't just finding tickets. It might actually be finding how to purchase things faster, better, how to automate all these different aspects. But the concentrated amount of time that you spend on each subject really gets your skills super honed in.
His whole concept about getting stuff out of your brain and just reducing your stress really is what I think the key to being successful and having a happy life. I've stayed with Ari through these mastermind courses now, and listening to his podcasts, and it's just, even though I'm at a much more productive state than I started, there's still so much more to learn, and I'm staying with these classes because I know that I don't know everything, and every week when we have our calls or the Facebook group discussions, it's just interesting to learn anything from health and biohacking to new productivity apps or tricks that either him or the really good group that we're in are suggesting. So I've learned a lot from it, and I'm going to stick with it.
What you should be thinking about is the value of interaction on a daily basis with Ari and people who are close to him. The back and forth between members of the group, and both learning from Ari and people questioning Ari's processes, and leading Ari into explaining the whys on things, getting responses on, well, if you could consider that a different way, then maybe this, and having Ari justify why he's doing certain things is it's invaluable. Getting into the mind of the man himself really helps to, for one, make real what it is that you're trying to accomplish with these various things. Two, helps you to see some insight into how to customize these different processes for your own use. So getting that daily interaction and being able to go back and forth, not only with Ari, but with the other people in the group, and having this collaborative team effort of how to optimize a particular thing or how to automate it is worth its weight in gold.